welcome. Yes, I would love to help you out. This is a romance bookstore, so we specialize in romance books of all kinds, and it's a variety. So, whatever you're looking for, I'm sure we might have something that might pique your interest. Yes, so don't be shy. Do tell me what you love. I would be happy to find your next romance book to read. Yeah, so we do carry specifically just romance books, but we also carry books that involve romance storylines to a degree, and of course we throw in some other stuff as well. We are a small business used bookstore, so we do get a lot of donations. We also do source new books or work with authors selling books, but a lot of our books are used or pre-loved, and we often get donations that may be a little bit more non-romance than maybe we would like it to be, but we still try to offer it to our customers because we find they still love to come to our bookstore regardless if they are really into romance or not. So we do have a variety. Yeah. Okay, yes, I would be happy to find something that might be of interest to you. Okay. Would you mind giving me a little bit more information about what kind of romance books you like? Oh, and you're trying to get some for others, friends, family? Okay. Okay, well, let's start with them first. Okay. You got it. Heard you loud and clear on that one. Okay. Can I ask the age range? Okay. No problem. Yes, I can understand that. And what about the other person you're looking for a book for? Okay. 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 All right. Good to know. And what about yourself? Okay. Okay. And fantasy as well? Okay. Oh, and contemporary. So you're pretty open. Okay. And what about the level of spice for your comfortability? For specifically you, yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, I have my notes. Thank you. Was there anything else before I take a look at our inventory? Based on these notes, I should be able to find some selections for us to go through together. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for trusting me so much. I take it with honor, and I will try to do you justice, okay? So how about you take a seat, relax. I'm gonna go pull some books for you. Oh, it's not a problem. Shailene is on the floor helping other customers, so I am all yours. Okay, so don't even worry about it. Alright. Okay, take a seat. I'll be right with you. for you for your young adult friend who you wanted to give a gift to, or should I say, yes, definitely YA. There's also, I think, new adult or adult. They like to change it every time. So for now, young adult is young adult still, as far as I know. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 books. And some of them are more series I wanted to recommend. I know you're not looking to purchase 8 books for your young adult friend or relative, but I thought I would mention them anyways, just in case. Okay. The first book I wanted to share is my all-time favorite young adult book, and it's Ella Enchanted. This is the original cover. We have here a frayed edge. She is quite delicate, very well loved, and used. This edition is from 1997. The cover art, at least. Although I'm sure it's printed in the early 2000s as well. So, this is a beautiful story. If you haven't seen the movie already with Anne Hathaway in it. But it follows a young girl named Ella Afrell, and the story is similar to Cinderella, essentially, but Ella is born with a gift, or curse, really, where she cannot be disobedient. She has to follow orders, no matter what is said. So, you can imagine a 15, 16-year-old girl struggles with that quite a bit. Her stepmother and stepsisters don't make it any easier for her. And what Cinderella story would there be without a Prince Charming? And Prince Char is probably one of my first crushes as a young girl, fictional crushes, of course. So that's saying quite a bit because I really liked him in this book. So I even enjoy reading this at an older age, but I do find young adult, it's perfect for a teenager. And the romance is just amazing. So this is my first book recommendation for young adult romance. This has to be my second favorite, if not maybe tied for first place, young adult romance book, which is The Goose Girl. This is a lovely edition from 2003. Just a lovely work of art, beautifully written. Again, very timeless, I feel, for any age, but especially young adult, it's fantastic. It follows a princess who, through a very interesting situation, must pretend to be a goose girl. And of course, she meets a charming man who is also very lovable and It's just such a sweet, wholesome romance, but still so much heart and suspense and stakes in this book. It really makes you feel deeply for the characters and the story. So, also highly recommend The Goose Girl. Next, we have a book series that's a little bit more, I would say, romance, a little spicier, but not crazy. So, of course, for a teenager of a certain age, it's definitely acceptable. So, this follows a young woman. It's called The Girl in the Steel Corset. And it's the Steampunk Chronicles by Katie Cross. So again, there is some steaminess. If this isn't their cup of tea, just be aware of that. But it's a young girl, kind of around 18, 19 years old. So it could be more on the cusp of new adult, but this follows a girl in sort of the Victorian age of England, but it's not your regular England. It's an England that has magical sci-fi-esque elements where the inventions are obviously unique and wouldn't have occurred in real time back then, but this is more of a fantasy twist. And the young girl has a special hidden power that causes her to be quite dangerous. So she has to find asylum, if you will, with the protection of a young duke, lord. And yeah, things get kind of interesting from there with her motley band of friends and this duke who's very dashing and handsome and has secrets of his own. So this is a great series. I found it very lively, entertaining, whimsical, very fun indeed. So highly recommend it for your teenage friend if they're interested and, if you think it's a good fit. The next few books are actually all somewhat related, so it kind of just depends if they're of interest to you. But they are books by Lisa T. Berggren, and they're kind of like the Outlander version for young adults. It's kind of how I see it. Specifically, the series called the River of Time series. This is, I believe, book 4. The other books we don't have in stock, but I thought maybe I could share the series so you could, if you wanted, we could order them for you at a later date if you wanted to purchase them. But this is the 4th book we have. It's called Deluge, and the first book is called Waterfall, and then it goes Cascade, Torrent, and then I think Deluge. So this series is about a girl who ends up back in time in the, I believe, the 1300s, Italy, specifically Florence and Siena territories or areas at the time. And of course, she meets a very handsome medieval prince or noble. I don't know that he's a prince, I forget, but he is a noble Italian man from the 1300s. And the series follows her trying to, but also navigating, going back in time and falling for a handsome young man back in time. So it's really a riveting series. I really enjoyed it when I read it as a young teenager. It was really just suspenseful. The stakes felt high. There was intensity, there was romance, no spice, but there is like a fade to black scene in like the last few books. But it's definitely more, I wouldn't call it a slow burn, but it's definitely, it's not super fast and it's not super specific in terms of spice or at all. So it's definitely young adult friendly. What's interesting is that she also came out with another version of this sort of Outlander Girl Goes Back in Time series with River of Time California, and this one is the first book in that series, and it's called Three Wishes. And it's like the same premise, but the girl is different and goes to a different time period to California, and again finds a handsome young man. So these books and the River of Time series are probably one of my all-time favorite series that I read as a teenager, alongside Glamorous Illusions, which I think this was the first book. Yeah, this is the first book of the Grand Tour series, again by Lisa T. Berggren. I loved Lisa. She has a special place in my heart as a teenager. This is about a young girl. It's very Bridgerton, Downton Abbey. She basically gets picked up by this man, this wealthy man, and he immediately claims her as like one of his children, even though she never knew that was her father. This is like the first chapter. And essentially she's whisked away on a grand tour. That's what they did often back in the day, where rich nobles, specifically she resides in the US, they would go on grand tours throughout Europe. And so she goes on this grand tour, meets a young dashing man along the way, but there's a little bit of a challenge because she now has come into wealth and status and has to navigate this with a father she barely knows. It's a very riveting series. Love it. The romance is just so good as well. Now I will say Lisa T. Berggren is what I would define as an author with a religious background. This is one of those things where it's very, I would say, the characters may talk about God, but it's not, when I was reading them, I didn't feel like that was a very heavy thing. It was just like they had faith. It wasn't necessarily something that was very heavily pushed throughout the story. So to me, it wasn't bothersome, but just wanted to, give you a heads up that these characters may talk about God or have a belief in a God, and it basically is of the Christian kind. But that being said, the romance is great and the whole book isn't about faith. Obviously that's what drives characters in general, but it's a little bit more interesting, I would say, than just, a faith book. I don't think I would classify it as that. I would say that the faith of the author sort of exudes in small, subtle ways in the writing. However, it's been a minute since I've read them, so feel free to flip through the pages if you'd like to just double check anything of, concern. I just thought I would give a heads up. Speaking of faith, we have now come to the next book, Twilight, our Bible. I'm joking. That's a joke. Some might call this a Bible of young adult romance from the early 2000s, so I'm not too far off with that. But Twilight is obviously a lovely, classic vampire love story. You can't go wrong with it. The romance is very fun, I would say intense at times, but also it's very young adult, and you don't kind of get to more intense or like more spicy, even then on the spicy realm pretty low until later books. So it's of course written by an author who has a background in Mormonism, so it's kind of funny, but again, you don't really get any of that in the books. It's mainly a vampire story. A girl named Bella who moves to the northwest to stay with her father and happens to meet the Cullen family, who has a son that seems very disgusted by her and yet can't keep himself from her, if that makes sense. I'm not sure why I'm explaining the premise of Twilight, because I feel like everyone knows about it, but just in case you didn't know, which some people may not, you know. So, this is definitely a great series. I would say the first book is my favorite. It's just something I've reread so many times. Still gives me all the good feels. So, highly recommend Twilight. You know, when you can remember all the times you've reread a book and just like where you were sitting. And I remember being at my grandmother's house reading these books. When I was like 15 years old. And what a time. What a time. Okay. Definitely recommend this. Okay. The last series, I would say for anywhere between 14 and maybe 17, this might be of interest. Young adult series. This is definitely like one of those action-packed, like this would be a TV show kind of book, if you know what I mean. It's just like one of those sci-fi teen shows, if you thought about it. That's what this book series is, and it's called Maximum Ride. This isn't the first book, but they have so many books. The first one, I believe, let's see if I can navigate it. So they have Maximum Ride as the like series name, but then each book, like the first book is called The Angel Experiment, and then so forth and all that good stuff. So this was written by James Patterson, who I don't know how this man physically writes so many books of varieties, but apparently he wrote this series. I have to imagine he had a ghostwriter or a co-writer, but I ate this series up. It's about a girl. Her name is Max, and she is experimented on as a child and grows up basically in a lab, and she has wings along with 5 other friends of hers who are children who grew up with her and got wings as well. She has a little bit of a, romance with one of the boys, very age appropriate, and they escape this lab, or attempt to, and escape the scientists who are trying to basically use them as like weapons of war. It's very fast paced, definitely like quick. I would say it's pretty teen appropriate, and it's not spicy, at least from what I can recall. But it's definitely going to have topics for that teenage audience, if you will. And I think curse words are also used as well heavily. So definitely an angsty teen series, lots of fun, very action-packed. It was one of my favorite series growing up. Okay. Was there anything of interest for your young adult friend, relative that I could ring up for you? Okay. So Twilight. You said they don't have this one yet. Okay, perfect. Keep that one. The girl in the steel corset. Okay. Is that all for today then? Okay. Alright, you're getting more dark academia vibes from them lately. Okay. Perfect. Well, all the other recommendations are still here if you want to come back and get your next book for them. Okay. So, let's see. Okay, and then alright. Okay, I'll set these to the side and I can grab the next batch of books for you. Okay. Alright, thanks for patiently waiting. I have your next batch of books here, and you can see they are colorful and bright because they are indeed contemporary romance novels. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I know you said you were interested in some contemporary romance novels, so let's go ahead and dive into the stack I have here. Some of them might be a little familiar. Yeah. Okay, let me actually grab this one. Okay. So, the first two, I have to give a shout out to one of my favorite contemporary authors of late. Allie Hazelwood books are amazing. They're all standalone, so you could really grab whichever one that piques your interest. I started with the Love Hypothesis myself and found that to be a great starting point or entryway to her books. Now, if you are unfamiliar, Allie Hazelwood specializes in contemporary books with women in STEM for the most part, or women who are involved in sciences or engineering, things like that. And as you can see, it's clearly a romance, spicy romance. I wouldn't say it's the most spicy you're ever gonna find, but it's definitely up there. And I love that there's also a plot and a story that's interesting to keep you engaged, because I like that the spice isn't just like starting off on page 1. It definitely builds up to that in a really satisfying way. So, the Love Hypothesis is about a woman, Olive, who basically has this enemy in this professor here who she is essentially like a co-worker with, or works in the same area as, and she just can't help but start to fall for him a bit, even though he takes her off in other ways. And there's much more to this story, but it's definitely a fun enemies to lovers style book. And then we also have Love on the Brain. I really liked this one. This story follows a woman named B, who is basically working for NASA in neuroengineering for a neuroengineering project, and she has to co-lead this project with a man who she doesn't get along well with. The MO a lot of the time for Ellie Hazelwood's books are like enemies to lovers. Not like in crazy intensities, but in some way, shape, or form, there's sometimes enemies. But definitely a great, fun read as well. Love these, I would say, the most right now from her series of books that are standalone again. Okay, let's see. The next few recommendations are also by the same author, Hannah Grace. And I would recommend Icebreaker, which is like the first book and the one you would want to start off with. Definitely spicy, very fun, sports romance. She's a figure skater, he's a hockey player, and they have a little bit of a spat. They have a little bit of an enemy thing going on for a little bit there. Very spicy, romantic in the spicy sense. So if that's something you're keen about, this is a great book. I do love the dialogue and the characters though. I feel like it adds a lot of depth for me, where often these types of books can be a little lacking in that. I really love the way Hannah writes the dialogue, and I just laugh a lot with these books for some reason. I just enjoy it. This is her latest book. She also has a second one that came out, which I'll share momentarily. But this one is Daydream. It's the third book, and I have yet to read it. It's still on my list, but oh my gosh, I'm so excited because I really like the character that you get introduced to in the first book. It's his love story in this one. So they are standalone, but they are technically connected, so I would recommend reading in the order that Hannah writes these. But this is Daydream, and it follows Henry, who is a college student, also on the hockey team, of course, per the first book. And he befriends someone, a girl, Hallie. And they, of course, develop some kind of romance. I have yet to know what that is because I need to read it myself. But I'm so excited. I might read this next, honestly. We'll see. Then we have Emily Henry. Emily Henry is a great writer for romance, but also like depth. A lot of the romance is what the plot is in her books, but there's also so much more character development, and the spiciness isn't like very, very heavy. It's definitely part of the story, but not like very, explicit, I would say, like explicitly there the whole time. Again, slow burn. But there's also real like character development stories going on, dynamics, so it's a little bit more fiction oriented, but still romance. This is one I have yet to read as well. It's called Book Lovers. Book Lovers. This is about a girl who's a book agent, I believe, and she keeps bumping into an editor, a book editor, Charlie, and they have sort of a budding romance. It's set sort of in the summertime, so it's kind of a nice summery book, I imagine, but summer to fall. Book lovers. Next in contemporary, we have The Spanish Love Deception. I really loved this book. It's about a woman who works for this company, and her coworker slash turned into boss, the guy, she ends up making a deal with him to pretend to be his girlfriend, or for him to pretend to be her boyfriend for a wedding she's going to in Spain, for a family wedding, because she doesn't want her family to know she's not taken. So she convinces him to pretend, and of course the pretend story ends up revealing some very true feelings that they may have for each other. So it's fun, it's funny, it's romantic, it's hot. So I definitely think this is a great one. Steamy as well. Doesn't lack in that department. And so I definitely recommend it. Okay, I have a few more contemporary books that are more summer themed. So we have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I really enjoyed this book. It's definitely more of like a heartfelt book. Definitely tugs on the heartstrings a little bit, about a girl who goes back to, I believe, the lake her family would go to growing up, and she meets sort of the like boy next door during the summers who she grew up with, had a bit of a romance with, but it's a little complicated, as these stories tend to be. So definitely a good read if you're kind of in your feels a little bit, or willing to be. It's not like a tragic book, but it's definitely, there's some sad moments, so just a heads up. This book is also by Carly Fortune, and it's This Summer Will Be Different. I have yet to read this one, but it's sort of kind of a similar premise but different characters. So it's this woman who goes to vacation at a beach house on Prince Edward Island, and she sort of ends up having a fling with her best friend's younger brother, so that's a little complicated. It follows that dynamic around. So some like fun beach reads, but with a little bit of heartfeltness and character development, I would say, in these stories. Okay, then we have Wildfire, which is also by Hannah Grace. It's the second book in the Icebreaker series, and this is like a camp counselor style book, very summery, and follows one of the hockey player characters. And this is a fun read. I really liked his character. He just, he has my heart. I really liked him a lot in this book. Like, he's just kind of one of those, it's not really enemies to lovers. It's more like we can't really be together because it's complicated, which isn't necessarily enemies. It's more just like that tense will they, won't they kind of feeling. And he just has like history and a character development that I really enjoyed. So, I don't know, he's just like a golden retriever guy, but like not, he's still very like firm and like protective. And I loved it. I really loved him in this. So I love a golden retriever who's like also kind of like still firm about like, I don't know, just like stands their ground for their person. I love it. Okay. And then lastly, summer read Happy Place by Emily Henry. Again, I was a little hesitant to read this book last year, but I'm really glad I did. It was one of my favorite books, and it was just a really heartfelt story. Really didn't know how it was going to end, so I won't give too much away, but basically it's about a couple who is part of a friend group who goes to a, you know, beach house every summer, kind of like Rhode Island or Maine, Nantucket vibes. And they, this couple was engaged and then they had to not be engaged anymore, and they have to kind of like pretend they're still together around their friends, so that's a little complicated and it turns interesting. So I definitely enjoyed this as like a heartfelt romance story. Yeah, so lots of fun options. I gave you quite a bit of contemporary romance items to think about. Was there anything that struck your fancy? Anything you might want to take home with you? Okay, yeah, no problem. So you were interested in, let's see, is it this one? Every Summer After. And the Spanish Love Deception. Okay. Okay, and Book Lovers. You got it. Okay, amazing. Alright, well, let me just ring these up for you. To your stack over here, okay? And I'll grab the next set of books. Okay. So, these next few books I wanted to share for that other friend you mentioned. Right. They were more interested in a little less romance, it sounded, a little bit more interested in the plot, per se. Right. So I have a few options that involve romance to a degree, but it's not quite the main point of the story. So a little touch here and there, and a little different in genre. But here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books. Okay. So the first few books here, this first one, Where the Crawdads Sing, is more of like a mystery, thriller, maybe less thriller, more mystery, I would say. And it's basically about a girl who grows up as the Marsh Girl. Her family is very poor, living in North Carolina on the coast in the 1960s, late 1960s. And it follows the story of how she grows up, basically becoming quite isolated and sort of treated like an outsider in her town, even though she's, what you would think a little girl growing up would be like, living in that kind of situation. But she was treated as other, and so basically the story follows her being on trial for being a suspect in a murder. And of course the town pins this on her, or tries to, because they've treated her like an other. And so throughout the story you get her past flashbacks with her present day at the trial, and what ends up happening at the end, and what that even, what concludes. It's very riveting. I think I read it in like one day. It was so enthralling at the time. And very nicely written, very well written, and has a bit of romance in it. So definitely think this is a very fun, interesting read for your friend. Next, we have one of my all-time favorite books, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who's also a great author and writes a lot of similar stories where there's like some romance, but it's not like always the base of the story. However, I will say it's very heavy in this story. Obviously, it talks about a woman and she's an actress and goes through many partners, so you kind of see the dynamics and like who does she really love at the end of the day is the question you're trying to ask and answer. And yeah, it's definitely a very beautifully written book and just has such a special place in my heart. So I definitely recommend it for everyone. It's just so wonderful, heartfelt, captivating, all that good stuff. Yeah, so it's a good one right here. Next we have Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. This was made into a movie, and the movie is great, but it's definitely different than the book. And so the book is definitely includes a romance, but it's not a heavy part of the book. It's really like the family dynamics, very heavily focused on that, and just a lot on class and like the different cultures across different countries, marrying into that different culture, different family, and what that could mean. It's definitely a riveting story, and there's a few books in this series as well, so highly recommend for someone who's interested in a little bit of like intrigue and drama. So yeah, definitely a good one. Okay, next we have what I call the sweet wholesome fantasy books. Cozy fantasy, I want to say. So I actually haven't read this yet, but it's on my list. It's The House in the Cerulean Sea, and it follows a man who is sort of summoned to this orphanage to investigate, dangerous magical children, or how dangerous they might be. And he meets Arthur, who basically oversees the children, as far as I'm aware of. But I do believe there's a romance of a kind involved in this, so I don't know to the extent. I don't know, as I've yet to read it, but I heard it's very good. It's like adult, cozy fantasy fiction. And yeah, I've heard many good things about The House in the Cerulean Sea, so something to think about. And of course, intriguing plot as well. And finally, we have The Spell Shop. This is a cozy romance fantasy. Again, the romance is there, but it's like a subplot for the most part. The main plot is about a woman, a librarian, who escapes to this island where she used to grow up. So kind of like her hometown. And she's hiding books from magical books, I should say. And she sort of creates her own spell shop in the town, and is basically amongst many characters, magical characters. It's this magical, fantastical island of people, and there's of course plot, but it's not too intense. to follow. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like fantasy or high fantasy or anything. It's definitely easy to grasp and cozy, and the romance is just so pure, and I love it. It's kind of like a small town romance set in like a fantasy magical island. Like a Gilmore Girls episode, but if it was magical kind of thing. I don't know. So it's a beautiful story. Love the messages about kind of like finding yourself, found family, you know, creating family around you, what it means to kind of accept love and be vulnerable. It's just a beautiful, lovely story. I love it. So definitely recommend this if your friend is interested in some romance, but it's, you know, but there's other great messages included. Alright, is there anything that might interest your friend? Okay, you want to do 7 Husbands. Great choice. And the Spell Shop. Okay. Beautiful. Alright. Let me go ahead and ring these up for you. Alright, well here are your books. I've left the stack over there as well for the other ones we selected for you. Yeah. No, that was my pleasure. Thank you so much for allowing me to select all these books for you. I just love picking out books that I think people might enjoy. So thank you for being patient as I shared some of my favorites with you. They truly don't cover everything or every romance book that I really love, but a lot of them are great ones in our collection. Yeah, and before you go, I just have a few other items I wanted to give. So with your purchase, we're going to give you these 3 heart bookmarks, of course, for the romance theme. So they're like little leather corners that you can put on the page and like slip the paper on. It acts like a little corner bookmark. So I'll include these in your purchase free of charge. My pleasure. And if you're interested, we also have a reading journal that a good friend of mine created for the book lover in your life or in your own life. And this is a reading journal that you can write down goals, list of books you want to read, and plenty of lovely illustrated pages to keep track of all your books. You have monthly wrap-up pages where you can talk about the books you read, your favorite quote, character, your least favorite book, your favorite book. Of course, keep track of everything. And some end pages where you can get specific on each book and your thoughts. And over the year, you can also keep track of your favorite books and see which one wins at the end of the year. The favorite book you read each month. There's bookish bingo, so you can like create prompts for books you want to read or challenges you want to give yourself. And there's just so many fun pages and ways to keep track of everything. You also have a book graveyard for the books you just don't end up finishing. Which unfortunately for me, a few of them I haven't. But this is such a fun way to keep track. This is such a fun way to keep track of your books. Yes, of course. I can add it to your pile here. I'll just add that for you. Just one. Okay. No problem. Okay. Alright. Well, the total ring up for you. And I'm giving you a special 20% discount because you are a first-time customer and you received my special selection services. So for that, I thank you, and you get 20% off today on your whole purchase. Yeah. Thank you. It was so fun. It was such a pleasure to select some of these books for you. Yes, thank you so much for stopping by our romance bookstore. And feel free to stop by and donate anything you may want to part ways with. Or if you have any recommendations of things you want to see, feel free to give us an email. Or you can fill out a little note and put it in that little box over there to give us suggestions. Thank you so much for coming by. We really appreciate it.